A cold February night. A deserted stretch of road. A wrecked car, but no sign of its driver. What happened to Maura Murray? Maura was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, bright, athletic, and ambitious. But on February 9, 2004, she left campus unexpectedly, driving north toward the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Hours later, her car was found abandoned on Route 112 in the small town of Haverhill. The driver's side airbag had deployed. The windshield was cracked. But Maura was gone. A witness reported seeing her standing beside the car. Minutes later, she vanished without a trace. For 2 decades, investigators, journalists, and internet sleuths have searched for answers. Was Maura running away? Did she meet a stranger that night? Or is there something far more sinister at play? How does a young woman disappear without a trace, leaving behind more questions than answers? Tonight, we dive deep into the chilling mystery of Maura Murray's disappearance, a case that remains unsolved to this day. Maura Murray was born on May 4, 1982, in Hanson, Massachusetts, a small town south of Boston. She was the fourth of 5 children in a close-knit Irish Catholic family. Her parents, Fred and Laurie Murray, divorced when she was young, but Maura maintained strong relationships with both. She was particularly close to her father, who played a major role in her academic and athletic life. From an early age, Maura was a high achiever. She excelled in school, earning top grades in subjects like math and science. Her teachers described her as intelligent, disciplined, and determined. She was also an exceptional athlete, running track and cross-country, where she won multiple competitions. Her talent and dedication led her to be recruited by the prestigious United States Military Academy at West Point. In 2000, Maura began her freshman year at West Point, where she took on the demanding physical and academic challenges of cadet life. The military academy had strict rules, intense training, and a high-pressure environment. Maura worked hard and continued running track. But despite her success, she decided after a year that it wasn't the right fit for her. She left West Point and transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she pursued a degree in nursing. It was a difficult program, but she thrived, maintaining strong grades while also working at a local nursing home as part of her clinical training. From the outside, Maura's life seemed to be on a promising path. She was an honors student with a bright future ahead of her. But in the months leading up to her disappearance, there were signs that something was wrong. On the night of February 5, just days before she vanished, Maura was working a security shift at a dorm on campus when she received a phone call from her sister Kathleen. No one knows exactly what was said, but whatever it was, it left Maura visibly shaken. A supervisor later found her in a daze, unresponsive, staring off into the distance. When asked what was wrong, she simply said, "My sister." She was escorted back to her dorm, but whatever had upset her that night was never fully explained. 2 days later, on February 7, her father Fred came to Amherst to help her look for a new car. That evening, after dinner with him and a friend, Maura borrowed his car to go to a party on campus. At some point after midnight, she crashed the car into a guardrail near campus. No one was hurt, but the vehicle was damaged. Maura called her father to tell him what happened and apologized. The next morning, they discussed the situation, and Fred told her they would handle the insurance claim when he returned later that week. Then came Monday, February 9. That afternoon, Maura made a series of unusual decisions. She sent an email to her professors, telling them there had been a death in the family and that she would be out of town for a few days. But there was no death in the family. She withdrew $280 from an ATM, then stopped at a liquor store, where she bought a box of wine, some vodka, and a few other drinks. Shortly after, she got into her car and drove north toward New Hampshire. She didn't tell anyone where she was going or why. Hours later, she crashed on a rural stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill. Witnesses saw her standing outside her car. But by the time police arrived, she was gone. And from that moment on, Maura Murray was never seen again. On the morning of February 9, 2004, Maura Murray carried out what seemed like an ordinary routine. But beneath the surface, something was off. At 1:24 p.m., she sent an email to her professors, informing them that she would be absent from class for the next few days due to a death in the family. There was no death in the family. No relatives had passed away. No funeral was planned. Yet Maura had crafted this story as an explanation for why she would be leaving. Moments later, she emailed her boyfriend, Army Lieutenant Bill Roche, stationed in Oklahoma. Her message was brief. She told him that she loved him and that she had received his messages, promising to call him later. It was the last email she would ever send. At 2:18 p.m., she made a phone call to a rental company inquiring about a condo in the mountains of Bartlett, New Hampshire. Bartlett was a familiar place. Her family had taken vacations there when she was younger. But she never booked a reservation. She also made a call to a fellow nursing student, though the reason for the call is unknown. After that, Maura seemed to go quiet for several hours. By the time late afternoon arrived, her actions became even more puzzling. At 3:40 p.m., she withdrew $280 from her bank account at an ATM in Amherst, nearly emptying her balance. Security camera footage captured her standing at the machine. She was alone. Her expression was neutral, no signs of distress or urgency. From there, she stopped at a liquor store and bought several items: a box of Franzia wine, a bottle of Kahlua, vodka, and a pack of beer. Surveillance cameras captured her at the checkout counter. Again, she was alone. She placed the items into a plastic bag and exited the store. No one knows exactly what was going through her mind at that moment, but whatever her intentions were, they didn't involve coming back to campus. Somewhere between 4 and 4:30 p.m., Maura returned to her dorm room. She packed up a small selection of personal belongings, including her school textbooks and makeup. She left behind most of her other items, including her jewelry. She printed out an email to her boyfriend and placed it on top of the packed boxes in her room. It wasn't a farewell letter, but it suggested that she had plans to leave for an extended period of time. By 4:37 p.m., she had locked her dorm and left the campus. She climbed into her black 1996 Saturn and started driving north. For the next 3 hours, Maura's whereabouts are unknown. No surveillance footage places her on the road. No phone calls were made. No gas station receipts indicate where she stopped. At some point along her route, she crossed the state line from Massachusetts into New Hampshire, heading toward the White Mountains. The sky darkened. The roads became quieter. The air grew colder. And then, at exactly 7:27 p.m., Maura crashed. A local school bus driver, Butch Atwood, was the first known witness to the crash. As he made his way home that night, he spotted Maura's Saturn stuck in a snowbank along Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The front end of the car was damaged, and its hazard lights were flashing. Butch stopped his bus and approached the vehicle. Inside, he saw Maura sitting in the driver's seat. She appeared uninjured. He asked if she needed help, but she declined, saying that she had already called AAA. Butch knew this wasn't true. Cell service was unreliable in that area. He found it odd that she refused his help, but he didn't push. Instead, he drove the short distance to his home and called 911 at 7:42 p.m. Just 4 minutes later, at 7:46 p.m., police arrived at the scene. But Maura was gone. Her car was locked. The windshield was cracked, and the airbags had deployed. Inside, police found the box of Franzia wine, partially spilled in the front seat. They found some of her belongings, including a blank accident report form her father had given her after her previous crash. But there was no sign of Maura. She had vanished without a trace. As investigators arrived, they took note of the eerie silence surrounding the crash site. The snow was undisturbed except for a few footprints leading away from the vehicle. These tracks disappeared into the darkness of the nearby woods. If Maura had fled the scene voluntarily, where had she gone? Why had she walked away from the only source of warmth and safety in the freezing New Hampshire night? Police also discovered that no one had actually seen Maura leave. No headlights. No taillights. No sign of a second vehicle. Some speculated that she had accepted a ride from a stranger. Others believed she had hidden in the woods, evading law enforcement for reasons unknown. As the hours turned into days, the search for Maura intensified. Helicopters scoured the treetops. K-9 units traced her scent for a short distance before the trail suddenly stopped. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Maura's family arrived in New Hampshire, desperate for answers. They plastered missing posters across the region, pleading for information. But as weeks passed, hope turned to frustration. Theories began to emerge. Some believed Maura had staged her disappearance, choosing to walk away from her life entirely. Others feared she had met with foul play. But one fact remained undeniable: Maura Murray was gone, and no one knew why. The case remains one of the most perplexing disappearances in modern history. To this day, no confirmed sightings have ever been reported. No evidence has surfaced to suggest what happened after that fateful night on Route 112. What really happened to Maura Murray? And will we ever find the truth? Sergeant Cecil Smith, the responding officer, examined the scene. There were no visible footprints leading away from the car. No signs of a struggle. Just an empty vehicle on a remote stretch of highway, surrounded by dense forest. It was February, and the temperature was dropping below freezing. If Maura had left the scene on foot, the conditions were harsh, and time was critical. The first person to witness the crash, local school bus driver Butch Atwood, had spoken with Maura just minutes earlier. He recalled that she had refused his help, insisting she had already called AAA. But cell service in the area was unreliable. Concerned, Atwood drove the short distance to his home and called 911 at 7:42 p.m. When police arrived 4 minutes later, Maura was gone. Officers checked the immediate area, searching for any sign of movement. They scanned the road and the wooded areas nearby. No immediate clues were found. With night setting in, authorities decided to tow Maura's vehicle. It was taken to a local impound lot for further examination. Inside, investigators found several personal items: a box of Franzia wine, some of it spilled in the front seat. A book on mountain climbing. Maura's favorite stuffed animal. A printed email addressed to her boyfriend, Bill Roche. However, her debit card, phone, and driver's license were not inside the vehicle. By the morning of February 10th, law enforcement expanded the search. K-9 units were brought in, beginning at Maura's vehicle. The dogs followed a scent leading east along Route 112 for approximately 100 yards before it abruptly stopped. Ground searches were conducted throughout the area. Law enforcement, firefighters, and volunteers combed through the nearby woods, checking for any signs of movement or shelter. Helicopters were deployed to scan from above. Officers knocked on doors, questioning local residents, but no new information surfaced. News of Maura's disappearance quickly reached her family. By the evening of February 10th, her father, Fred Murray, had arrived in Haverhill. He retraced her last known movements, working alongside investigators. Her boyfriend, Bill Roche, flew in from Oklahoma, making repeated attempts to call her phone. On February 11th, one of those calls was unexpectedly answered. There was only silence on the other end before the line disconnected. The phone was never turned on again. Fred Murray remained actively involved in the search, urging law enforcement to expand their efforts. He worked with the media to raise awareness, hoping someone might come forward with new information. Law enforcement continued their investigation, analyzing evidence from the crash site and interviewing those who had been in the area that night. Despite these efforts, leads remained scarce. No confirmed sightings of Maura were reported. No conclusive evidence indicated where she had gone after the crash. The search continued in the following days and weeks, with both law enforcement and volunteers covering more ground. Investigators reviewed her financial records, travel history, and phone activity. Flyers were distributed throughout the region. Public appeals were made, asking for any witnesses to come forward. To this day, Maura Murray's disappearance remains an open case. Authorities continue to follow any new leads, and her family has never stopped searching for answers. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, Maura Murray remained missing. With no confirmed sightings, no clear evidence, and no trace of her found in the surrounding area, theories began to emerge. Some believed she had disappeared by choice. Others feared she had met a more sinister fate. One of the most widely debated possibilities is that Maura staged her own disappearance. In the days leading up to February 9th, she had shown signs of personal distress. She had crashed her father's car after a night out, causing thousands of dollars in damage. She had been caught using a stolen credit card months earlier. And on the afternoon of the day she vanished, she emailed her professors, stating that she was dealing with a family emergency and would be away for a week. The problem? No such emergency existed. These factors led some to believe that Maura was planning to leave her life behind. Perhaps she wanted to escape the pressure of school, personal struggles, or even a relationship. Supporters of this theory point to the fact that she withdrew nearly $300 in cash, bought alcohol, and packed up some of her belongings before heading north. But if Maura had intended to vanish on her own, why leave her car behind? And if she had arranged for someone to pick her up, why hadn't anyone come forward after all these years? The second theory is far more unsettling. That Maura was the victim of foul play. She was alone on a dark, rural road with no immediate access to help. The dogs tracking her scent lost the trail just 100 yards from her car, raising the possibility that she got into another vehicle. Did she accept a ride from a passing motorist? If so, who was behind the wheel? And what were their intentions? Some believe an opportunistic predator could have seen Maura in distress and taken advantage of the situation. Investigators looked into known offenders in the area at the time, but no strong connections were ever made. Others suspect that Maura may have known the person she left with, someone she trusted enough to willingly get into their car. But without physical evidence or a witness, this remains pure speculation. Another possibility is that Maura never left the area alive. Could she have wandered into the woods, confused or injured after the crash, and succumbed to the freezing temperatures? It was the middle of winter. The terrain was rough. If she had suffered a head injury in the accident or had been impaired, she may have become disoriented. But extensive searches of the region uncovered nothing, no footprints, no clothing, no remains. If Maura had died of exposure that night, why has no trace of her ever been found? Then there is the theory that Maura's disappearance may be connected to another missing persons case. Just 1 month later, in March 2004, 17-year-old Brianna Maitland vanished from a rural road in Vermont, only about 90 miles from where Maura was last seen. Brianna's car was found abandoned outside an old farmhouse, with her belongings left behind. Like Maura, she had seemingly disappeared without a trace. The similarities between the two cases led to speculation that they could be linked. Two young women, both from the same region, both vanishing under eerily similar circumstances. But investigators have never found concrete evidence connecting the two. Brianna's case remains unsolved, just like Maura's. Each of these theories raises more questions than answers. If Maura chose to disappear, why has she never resurfaced? If she was met with foul play, who was responsible? If she died in the wilderness, why was she never found? For years, family, friends, and internet sleuths have tried to piece together what really happened that night on Route 112. But the truth remains elusive. And until new evidence comes to light, the fate of Maura Murray will remain one of the most haunting mysteries of our time. As time passed, the search for Maura Murray never truly ended. Years after she vanished, new efforts reignited hope, but also deepened the mystery. In 2006, 2 years after Maura disappeared, a group of volunteers returned to the area, determined to uncover anything that might have been missed. They scoured the forests, combed through frozen riverbanks, and searched abandoned properties near Route 112. The official investigations had long gone cold, but those who followed Maura's case refused to give up. It was during one of these independent searches that attention turned to an A-frame house, not far from where Maura's car was found. The house had once been occupied by a man with a troubling history, someone whose name had surfaced in local whispers but was never formally charged. A team with cadaver dogs arrived to inspect the property. Almost immediately, the dogs reacted, strongly, inside one of the bedrooms. Their behavior suggested they had picked up the scent of human remains. But with no physical evidence and no warrant for a forensic dig, the lead ended there. No arrests. No answers. Just another dead end in a case full of them. 2 years later, in 2008, another team conducted a similar search. Once again, the dogs reacted in the same house. And once again, no further action was taken. The house was eventually sold. Whatever secrets it held, if any, were lost. Even as the physical search effort stalled, Maura's disappearance gained momentum in another way, through the media. Major news outlets began picking up the case. The more people learned about her story, the more they wanted to understand what had really happened that night. Then came the rise of the internet sleuths. Online forums and discussion boards were flooded with theories. Some users dissected Maura's final movements in excruciating detail, analyzing phone records, maps, and police reports. Others focused on people from her past, digging into her relationships and personal struggles. As the years went on, social media amplified the case further. True crime podcasts and YouTube documentaries kept the story alive. Some believed these efforts might help uncover the truth. Others worried they only added more noise, more speculation, and more confusion. But for one man, the search for Maura was never about theories or online debates. Fred Murray, her father, has never stopped looking for his daughter. In the years after she vanished, he became a relentless force, pushing authorities for answers. He filed legal motions to obtain case files. He appeared in the media, urging anyone with information to come forward. He returned to the crash site over and over again, refusing to let Maura become just another cold case. In one interview, he made it clear, he didn't believe Maura had left on her own. He believed something had happened to her that night, something dark, something deliberate. But without evidence, without a witness, and without a confession, there was nothing he could do. Except keep searching. With each passing year, the distance between Maura's last known moments and the present only grows wider. Leads fade. Witnesses move away. And the road where she was last seen remains the same, quiet, empty, and full of unanswered questions. Even after 2 decades, Maura Murray's case remains open, and authorities continue to investigate any potential leads. Over the years, new developments have surfaced, each one sparking renewed hope, only to leave the same lingering question unanswered: where is Maura Murray? In 2019, a long-awaited excavation took place. For years, speculation had surrounded a specific house near the crash site. Some believed it might hold the key to Maura's disappearance. The rumors intensified when cadaver dogs reacted to a certain area inside the home. But without hard evidence, law enforcement couldn't act. That changed in April of 2019 when authorities conducted a formal search of the property. A section of the basement was carefully excavated while officers watched, hoping that after all these years, something, anything, would finally bring clarity to the case. But when the dust settled, the search revealed nothing. No human remains. No evidence linked to Maura. Just another road that led to nowhere. Then, in 2021, a chilling discovery sent shockwaves through the true crime community. Bone fragments were found on Loon Mountain, just miles from where Maura vanished. For weeks, speculation ran wild. Was this finally the answer her family had been waiting for? The fragments were sent for forensic testing, and the results were conclusive: they did not belong to Maura. Once again, hope slipped through the cracks. Another possible lead had come and gone. Despite the disappointments, authorities refused to let Maura's case fade into history. In 2022, the FBI took an important step, issuing a national alert for Maura Murray. They created a violent criminal apprehension profile, officially integrating her disappearance into a national database used to track serial offenders and unsolved crimes. It was a recognition that Maura's case still mattered, that somewhere, someone might hold the key to the truth. And then, in 2024, on the 20th anniversary of her disappearance, law enforcement released an age progression image of Maura. The photo depicted what she might look like today, a woman in her early 40s, with features aged by time but still recognizable. It was a stark reminder that, despite the years that have passed, this is not just a mystery. This is a missing person. A daughter. A sister. A life left unfinished. With every new development, the question remains the same: what happened to Maura Murray? The search for answers is far from over. For 20 years, investigators, journalists, and armchair detectives have combed through every known detail of Maura Murray's disappearance. And yet, some of the most critical pieces of the puzzle remain missing. One of the biggest mysteries lies in the items that were never recovered. Maura's debit card and cell phone were never found. No transactions. No signals. Nothing. In an age where digital footprints can track a person's movements with near precision, the complete absence of activity is unsettling. Did Maura take these items with her, or did someone else? If she had simply walked away, why did her digital presence vanish just as suddenly as she did? Then, there is the voicemail, a call that, to this day, remains unexplained. Shortly after Maura disappeared, her boyfriend received a message from an unknown number. When he played it, he heard the sound of a woman sobbing. The call was brief, just a few seconds, and then it ended. Was it Maura? Was it a cruel prank? Or something far more menacing? The origin of the call was never identified, leaving only more speculation in its place. And perhaps the most frustrating aspect of all, despite an exhaustive investigation, countless hours of search efforts, and the rise of an entire online movement dedicated to solving this case, there is still no concrete evidence. No clothing, no confirmed sightings, no definitive proof of what happened on the night of February 9, 2004. It is as if Maura Murray simply ceased to exist after her crash on Route 112. For every question answered, two more seem to take its place. And after all these years, the truth remains just out of reach. The disappearance of Maura Murray has remained one of the most haunting mysteries in modern true crime. A young woman, full of promise, vanished into the cold New Hampshire night, leaving behind more questions than answers. Her family has never stopped searching. Her father has walked those roads countless times, knocking on doors, pleading for answers. Investigators, journalists, and internet sleuths have dissected every detail, chasing leads that seem to fade into nothing. And yet, the truth remains just beyond reach. Somewhere, someone knows what happened that night. Someone holds the missing piece that could bring closure to Maura's loved ones. If you have any information, no matter how small, now is the time to come forward. Cases like this are not solved by silence. They are solved by those willing to speak. Until the day Maura's story is complete, we will keep searching. Because no one simply vanishes. The truth is always out there, waiting to be found.
Maura Murray's story remains an open question, a puzzle missing its final piece. And the more people who hear her story, the better the chances of finding the truth. If you found this case compelling and want to see more in-depth, gripping true crime investigations, make sure to subscribe to Buried Secret and turn on notifications so you never miss a case that still demands answers. Thank you for being part of this journey to uncover the truth.